lontana, sogno all'orizzonte, manca le parole. Io sì lo so che sei con me, tu mia luna, tu sei qui con me, mio sole, tu sei qui con me, con me, con me, con me. Time to say goodbye. Paesi che non ho mai veduto e vissuto con te, adesso sì li vivrò con te. Partirò su navi per mari che io lo so non esistono più. Con te io li rivivrò, con te partirò su navi per mari che io lo so non esistono più. Con te io li rivivrò, con te
Andrea Bocelli, time to say goodbye. If you're just joining us, you're waking up to the news at 19 minutes after 6. Pope Francis has died. He has died at the age of 88. The priest from Buenos Aires, Argentina. He left Italy, the home of the Vatican, 47 times on foreign trips. But never once did he return to Argentina because of the tensions between himself and the political establishment in Argentina. This is how we look back at the papacy, the rise of Pope Francis.
Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on December 17, 1936. Before studying for the priesthood, Bergoglio was a chemical technician. He joined the Jesuit Order of Priests in 1958. He was ordained a priest 9 years later, in 1969. Bergoglio quickly rose to prominence and was eventually elected the provincial leader of the Jesuits in Argentina in 1979. During his time as a priest, he became the subject of controversy after he was accused of handing over 2 priests to be tortured by the military dictatorship that ran the country during the years of the Dirty War. The allegations have never been proven, and a criminal complaint filed against Bergoglio was dismissed. The humble and soft-spoken Bergoglio was eventually appointed an auxiliary bishop by Pope John Paul II in 1992. He chose as his personal motto the scripture from the Gospel of Matthew that says, "Because he saw him through eyes of mercy and chose him." That theme of mercy would become a defining one in his leadership of the Church. In 1998, Pope John Paul elevated Bergoglio to lead the influential Archdiocese of Buenos Aires. 3 years later, the Pope named him a prince of the Church, appointing him a cardinal. Despite his princely status in the Church, Bergoglio focused his attention on the people living in the slums of the city. Stories are told of how he would often be seen taking public transportation and sharing meals with the poor and destitute. Bergoglio also refused to live in the palatial archbishop's residence, choosing instead to reside in a modest apartment. He also refused an extensive domestic staff, choosing to cook his own meals. His personal humility endeared him to the people of Buenos Aires. He became known as the cardinal who was open to dialogue. When Pope John Paul died in 2005, several sources from inside the conclave to elect his successor have reported that it was Bergoglio who was the runner-up to Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger of Germany, who was elected Pope Benedict XVI. Bergoglio did not have to wait long. When Benedict stunned the Catholic world in 2013 by becoming the first pope in nearly 600 years to voluntarily resign the office, the College of Cardinals turned to Bergoglio. On the evening of March 13, 2013, the simple priest from Argentina was elected the 266th Bishop of Rome and Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. That decision was announced to the world in Latin.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. Eminentissimum ac reverendissimum Dominum Georgium Marium, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio, qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
Translated, it means, I announce to you a great joy. We have a pope. The most eminent and most reverend Lord Jorge Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, Mario Bergoglio, who has taken the name Francis. Bergoglio took the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, a saint known for his humility and love for the poor. Emerging on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica that March night, the new Pope Francis thrilled the thousands of Catholic faithful gathered in the famous St. Peter's Square when he greeted them in Italian with a simple, brothers and sisters, good evening.
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera. Voi sapete che il dovere del conclave era di dare un vescovo a Roma. Sembra che i miei fratelli cardinali sono andati a prenderlo quasi alla fine del mondo, ma siamo qui. Vi ringrazio l'accoglienza, la comunità diocesana di Roma, al suo vescovo. Grazie.
Fully translated, Francis's first comments to the world were, quote, "You know that the duty of the conclave was to give a bishop to Rome. It seems that my brother cardinals went almost to the end of the world to get him, but here we are. I thank you for this welcome by the diocesan community of Rome to its bishop. Thank you." End quote. It was a break from the past where popes greeted the faithful not as an equal but as the so-called vicar of Christ and successor of St. Peter. That simple act on a rainy night in Rome would come to define Francis's approach to the leadership of the Catholic Church. Francis took control of the Church amid the crisis of the worldwide sex abuse scandal that had exposed hundreds of predatory priests and shamed ordinary Catholics in the pews. Over the last 12 years of his papacy, Francis has dramatically reshaped the Catholic Church. He has refused the trappings of the office, wearing simple vestments and living in a modest convent rather than the apostolic palace in the Vatican City. But it is on doctrine and church teaching where Francis has had the most significant impact. He had focused the church on the climate crisis and the plight of the poor, advocated for a more merciful approach to gay and lesbian Catholics, and urged priests around the world to be more open to forgiving those involved in abortions. He also significantly restricted the celebration of the Mass in Latin. These moves won Francis the admiration and praise of the Church's liberal wing and those pushing for change to centuries-old doctrine against same-sex marriage, abortion, and ordaining women as priests. But the conservatives in the Church condemned what they saw as heresy and a lack of clarity from the leader of the worldwide Catholic Church. When asked about his views on gay Catholics, the Pope simply responded, "Who am I to judge?" In 2023, when Francis gave permission for priests to bless same-sex couples, the opposition was intense. Catholic leaders in Africa were some of the Pope's most strident critics. Some African bishops accused Francis of causing heresy in the Catholic Church.
Major concern is that this document looks to us like a heresy, it reads like a heresy, and it effects heresy. The document asks us to bless two people of same sex as individuals, but not as a couple. So these two people of same sex who the previous night slept together like a couple and present themselves to us as a couple are blessed as individuals, but they leave our presence as a couple. They go to their home as a couple. They sleep in the same bed as a couple. But the document says that they are not blessed as a couple, although they appear to have been blessed like a couple. How could this be not changing the authentic teaching of the Church?
Despite the criticisms, Francis never wavered from the promotion of mercy, peace, and compassion for all humanity. He called on Catholics to be a light in the world. Now, Francis has prayed his last rosary, offered his last blessing, and sung his final hallelujah. Catholics around the world turn their eyes to the Vatican, where voting members of the College of Cardinals will gather to elect a new pope. Francis, servant of the servants of God, vicar of Christ on earth, Bishop of Rome, Pope, dead at 88.
Ricardo Brooks there with the obituary of the life of Pope Francis, dead at 88. Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning, Cliff. Good morning to the listeners. How are you?
I'm sad. Francis was one of my favorite popes. Yes, I'm sad. We saw it coming, but when it comes, it is still, quite difficult. For you as a Catholic, how do you feel?
I mean, there's no doubt that he has been a transformative figure in the life of the church, certainly redirecting the church towards, as you heard, a more merciful pastoral approach. And he certainly urged regular Catholics in the pews to return to what he saw as a simpler, more modest approach to faith. He was a controversial figure.
No doubt.
Right. There are some who have said that he divided the Catholic Church. But there is no denying that he has left a mark over these last 12 years. All eyes will now turn to the Vatican, where a centuries-old process will unfold, the papal conclave, to choose Francis's successor. And that will also be closely watched, because a pope gets to name the members of what's called the College of Cardinals, who are the princes of the church. And if you are of voting age, I believe it's under 80 years old, you are allowed to participate. Francis has also dramatically changed that body in terms of who he has appointed and the composition.
It's no longer dominated by Europeans.
Absolutely. And not only that, there was a tradition that if you belong to a powerful archdiocese, let's say New York or Paris or Los Angeles, you are guaranteed a spot in the College of Cardinals. He's changed that. He has named little-known bishops from far-flung parts of the world. And there is I say fear advisedly, that whoever succeeds him, whoever emerges from that conclave, is perhaps going to be a lot like him and perhaps much younger. So that's to be seen. The cardinal from the Philippines, Tagle, who was actually scheduled to come to Jamaica. So if we get in touch with the Archbishop, we should put that to him. He is going to, I imagine, get to the top of the list. He was very close with Francis. He had a similar approach, and again, was a much younger man. But 1 billion Catholics across the world on Easter Monday. This is the most holy period in the Catholic Church. They'll be in mourning, and this is the second pope in recent times to die at Easter. Pope John Paul II also died at Easter and did not have a chance to preside over, as I said, the most holy period.
And what is riveting about this moment, I watched him yesterday in his Pope Mobile, going through the crowds at St. Peter's Square. And as I watched him, you could see the frailty.
Yes.
You could see the decline. And I wondered, is this his goodbye? Only for me to wake up this morning to hear that he's gone. One of the things that really drew me to Francis, when he took on the name Francis, and I researched the name Francis, and that prayer, yes, that peace prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
Yes.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not be so much seek to be consoled,
But to console.
as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal life. That to me is one of the most powerful prayers.
Yeah. And he did try
He
to...
lived it.
Precisely. As the Pope. He didn't take... His immediate predecessors, Benedict and John Paul, took a very dogmatic approach to being Pope. They were very quick to excommunicate, to condemn. He was much more pastoral. He would try to... He has this word he uses. He journeys with you. And he would urge priests across the world to journey with you. I mean, the historians will have their say as to whether that has been an effective approach, because, again, it has been blamed for accelerating the decline of Catholicism across Europe, where people just believe it was no longer robust. It was no longer robust. But he certainly believed mercy was a central part of
How will he
what
be
needed
remembered?
to- A revolutionary, a kind man,
A different man.
and a divisive
Different.
figure.
A commoner.
Yeah.
Yeah? A commoner. All right. This is Nationwide 90 FM. I almost said Nationwide at 5. No, it's Nationwide this morning. You're just waking up. You would have been sleeping longer than usual. It's Easter Monday morning, holidays. But we are here covering the breaking news that Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. He became Pope 13 years ago, yes, and he has been ailing for some time. He died this morning at 0735 hours. Time for the break.
Benedictus, benedictus qui venit, in nomine benedictus, in nomine Domini. Benedictus, benedictus qui venit, in nomine benedictus, in nomine
La fede è amore e perciò crea poesia e crea musica. La fede è gioia e perciò crea bellezza. Le cattedrali non sono monumenti medievali, ma case di vita dove siamo a casa, incontriamo Dio, ci incontriamo uno l'altro.
Good morning once again. It's 18 minutes going up to 7 o'clock. You may be a bit surprised to hear me and Ricardo. Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning, Cliff. Good morning, listeners.
But we're here to give you continuing coverage of the breaking news that the world's community of more than 1 billion Catholics are in mourning this morning because their leader, Pope Francis, has died. He died at 0735 Monday morning in Rome at the age of 88, having been Pope since 2013. So he was entering, his 12th year as Pope. The little-known Jesuit priest from Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, who was known as Bergoglio?
Jorge Mario Bergoglio.
Yes, Bergoglio. In 2013, the world turned to him. Yes, and he has been a controversial yet transformational pope. He evokes contrasting emotions and reactions because of his thrust. He became famous, of course, being elected pope, but also the first non-European in 1,300 years to be elected to the papacy.
Yes, there's never been a pope from this side of the world, this hemisphere. There's also never been a Jesuit pope, so he was also a first in that regard. Before becoming a priest, he was a club bouncer. Did you know that? Yes. No. And he was also a chemical technician, so he had a regard for science. So many firsts in that regard. Of course, he became pope because another pope, Benedict, was the first to resign in 600 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a question as to whether Francis would see it through to death, which had been the tradition for so long. He had also made clear that if he felt that his faculties were, failing him, then he would also resign the office. As it turned out, at about 7:35 local time in Rome, he died, and therefore gave up the office of Pope. What is happening now inside the Vatican, there's a process. There's an official known as the Camerlengo, who now heads the church functionally, and that I believe is Kevin Farrell, the American. Yes. Even that is a bit unprecedented. Francis made him Camerlengo. The Americans never usually get very far in terms of the leadership because there's this idea that as a superpower, it ought not to exercise that much control. But Kevin Farrell, Cardinal Farrell, is now the Camerlengo. He will be, for example, the man who removes what's known as the fisherman's ring from the Pope's finger and smashes it. That's a ring signifying his papal authority.
Smash it.
It will be smashed. Therefore, it can't be used again to authenticate any documents of the church. So that will be smashed. There's also a process of the confirmation of death, the tapping of his forehead, calling his name to make sure he's dead. So it's an elaborate process now happens. And
steeped in tradition.
Yes. And then, of course, his body will be placed in a coffin. He has changed the way the process works. He wants it to be simplified.
And away from 3 coffins to 1.
Precisely. He will also be the first pope in quite a while, not buried in the grottos of St. Peter's Basilica. He has opted to be buried elsewhere in Rome, another of his favorite churches. It escapes me the name of the church now, but he won't be buried in the grottos. So he has, again, that's his way of breaking tradition, changing, one may say even modernizing the process. So I saw a statement from the Vatican that said Cardinal Farrell will begin that process shortly of smashing the fisherman's ring and allowing members of the papal household to pay their final respects before the body is moved into a coffin.
And the College of Principals or of Cardinals who will elect his successor, they are not going to be able to start that process until 15 days
Yes,
after
15
today.
days of mourning will happen. And you can imagine, there's also a practical reason for that. The college is dispersed all across the world. Cardinals are from every continent, and after Francis, probably every possible country, is represented, whether it be at the regional level or at the local level. So they will need time to leave their various parts of the world to gather. So that period also allows for that.
Well, the cardinals who are able to vote have to be younger, under 80 years old.
Yes.
Yes. And of the living cardinals, 138 are under 80. So only 138 will be able to vote.
Right.
If you're 80 and above, that will exclude you.
You are excluded. So you go to Rome to participate in the conversations about what the new pope should look like, but you can't enter the Sistine Chapel, which is where the voting takes place, to cast a ballot for the pope.
But listen to this. Of those who are able to vote, 16 of the 138 are in North America, 4 in Central America, 18 in South America, 54 from Europe, 6 or none from Rome, but 54 from Europe, 18 are from Africa, 24 are from Asia, and 4 are from Oceania. Do we have a vote in Jamaica?
We do not have a vote. And we do not have a vote in the Caribbean either. The last cardinal appointed from this region, I believe, was from Dominica, but he had already passed the voting age. Francis made him a pope. So we don't have a vote. I suppose by proxy, the North Americans would be the closest to us in terms of a vote. And it's interesting, those numbers, because Asia, read Asia again.
Asia has 24.
And Africa.
Africa has 18, yes.
Okay.
18.
I believe a 2/3 majority is required to elect the pope. So they call themselves paperless. They'll be watching closely those voting members, because that's a significant block from the developing world.
Yes.
That will now have sway. And Francis, by design, some things made it that way. South America is how much? South America.
South America has 18 as well.
Okay. So that will be a significant voting block, and it may dilute the power of the European cardinals as well as the North Americans in who the next pope should be. There's also a question as to whether finally, they've been talking about it for quite some time, a black pope could emerge on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. That's to be seen.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get our first local reaction now from the vicar of administration of the local Catholic Church, Father Kingsley Asful. Good morning, Father.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Your reactions to the passing of your leader, Francis.
Well, I was saddened when I got up this morning at 3:30 to learn of the death of Pope Francis. And right away, to be sure, I checked, I Googled and indeed learned of his death. And immediately I went over to the church and I pealed the bells. It's at that moment for the Catholic Church, indeed. We had hoped that he would have regained some health and strength to continue his ministry, but it's in God's design that he should have passed during the Easter season. May God grant him eternal rest for all his labor, his ministry, his work.
Which of the churches did you go and peal the bells?
Holy Cross Church, and the pastor at Holy Cross Church in After Tree.
Oh. So you did that at what time this morning?
I think by 3:45, the bells were pealed.
Wow. And the reactions of your members?
Well, I sent out in my church's WhatsApp group announcing the death of Pope Francis, and invited them. We are scheduled to have Mass at 8 o'clock this morning. So I invited those who can make it to come to celebrate and to remember Pope Francis and Mass this morning.
And Father, the period of time that the church is in, Easter, the Easter Triduum, the leader of the church passing at this time, locate that for us, how significant that is.
Well, it is significant in that, yes, we are still celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And for us as Catholics, it's not just Easter Sunday. We have 7 weeks of Easter, and we are in a resurrection mode, new life. And as I said at the introduction, it is God's will that Pope Francis should have been passed over to Almighty God during this period, experiencing new life, resurrected life. And it's a sign for us too that we too one day will join the church triumphant in experiencing that new life that Christ has come to offer each of us.
And if you could identify the one thing that you think local Catholics should remember about the Pope's time in office and his message to the faithful, what would that be?
Well, we are in a Jubilee year of hope. The Catholic Church, Universal Church, is celebrating 2025 as a Jubilee year of hope under the theme, Pilgrims of Hope. And I think that Pope Francis has managed to give many people who had little hope in their church, he has offered us a renewed hope. A renewed hope. And I think that's the real legacy that he has left us as a universal and as a local church. To give many people who had little hope a renewed hope in their church, a renewed hope in their faith, a renewed hope in life.
How much of a consequential Pope will Francis be?
Well, he will be remembered, I think, as the Pope who reached out to the marginalized. He was the Pope who demanded justice for the poor and the dispossessed. And he really rallied against unbridled, what we call capitalism and climate change. He will go down in history as the outsider, so to speak, the Pope from the Americas, who charted a new course and a more liberal course as leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. He will go down in history as the Pope for renewal, you know. The Pope who lived in the now, I would say. Letting go of the old yeast and making ourselves into a new batch of freshly baked bread, so to speak, as was the alternative second reading at our liturgy yesterday from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. He was certainly a Pope of the now.
How much of that do you credit to the expansion that we've been seeing in the Catholic population in places like Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America? How much of his leadership do you credit that to?
But as I say, he was a Pope for the times, a man for all seasons, but a Pope for the now. And because of his outreach to the marginalized, the dispossessed, the poor, those who live on the periphery of life, those who, even the gays and so forth, he really brought a new, fresh thinking to the church. And that attracted many persons. And so they wanted to become become members of the church to celebrate that which he was standing up for.
Okay. Father Kevin
Kingsley
Aswell, what now in terms of the traditions, the ceremonies for the local church? What happens now?
Well, for the local church, we now await instructions from our Archbishop. I'm sure he'll be calling the Archdiocese. We have 3 dioceses, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. I'm sure that in each diocese, our leaders will be calling us to prayer. And some celebrations will be planned surrounding the memorial of the legacy and life of Pope Francis. So we await instructions from our bishops, days of mourning, so to speak, and all of that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Father.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Father Kingsley Aswell, Vicar, Administrator of the local Roman Catholic Church.
Pastor of Holy Cross Church, just up the road there in Halfway Tree.
Yes. And we're going to get another reaction now from Jean Laurie Chin. Jean has been a devout Catholic.
Yes.
Yes. And also we are going to get reactions from other local Catholics here in Jamaica, of course. And it's a tough morning. Not entirely surprising, but a tough morning for the 1 billion Catholics across the world. Yes. And good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Cliff. What a sad day. But we know where our Pope is. He is with his God.
Oh. And for devout Catholics, a very, very difficult time.
It is, because this was a Pope. You know, one of his biographers said that this was a Pope who channeled the Good Samaritan. He had so much love for everybody. He was not judgmental. He was so loving.
Mm-hmm. And for local Catholics, a little trepidation about who comes next.
Yes. I really hope that his whole outlook, his embrace of so many issues that affect us, you know, Cliff, he spoke so passionately about climate change. He spent his last days talking about peace in the world. And those are very big shoes to fill, very big shoes to fill.
Father Aswell told us just now, Jean Laurie Chin, that he'll remember him as the Pope who inspired hope. How will you remember him?
Yes, the Pope who inspired hope, and also the Pope who had so much humility. Because, you know, when you become Pope, you get all of these beautiful clothes to wear and this special red shoes. And he did not wear those shoes. He wanted his good, comfortable old shoes. And he continued to wear his own shoes. You know, people kind of looked down when he had on his papal gown, and they were so surprised that this man had on his old shoes. And there is a very rich area of the Vatican where the Pope lives, and he chose to live in a more humble quarters, somewhere near, but not in the Vatican. And he lived there all his life. And, you know, when it was announced to him that he was elected Pope, he said, "What have you done?" He was so surprised, you know, because he did not have any magnificent image of himself. He was always a man of God, serving his people, going the extra mile. He had been told, to convalesce, I think, for 2 weeks.
Yes.
But Easter came. And as he was like the people's cleric, he had to be there to pray with his people for Easter. And he probably knew the risk. So again, his courage. He probably knew the risk he was taking, because there were thousands of people around him, when he came out. People were celebrating. Their Pope was out. Their Pope was among them for Easter. He had a diplomatic meeting yesterday with the Vice President. This is what I didn't even realize when I got the call this morning, but my friend Fabian was telling me. Jean, do you know that he met with the Vice President yesterday? So this is a man who decided that he was going to serve his people to the maximum. And that Easter, the feast of the risen Christ, I think he went forward for Easter, knowing that whatever happened, he would be with his risen Christ.
Yeah.
That question Cliff asked about trepidation going forward, you speak highly of the humility of Francis. Are you hoping or hopeful that whoever succeeds him will continue in the same vein that he has led?
I think so. I think he has made such an impression on his fellow church leaders, his fellow Catholic church leaders, that I don't see how they can turn back. I mean, he came into the papacy to a church that really had been hurt by some really sad stories about abuse, etc. And he came in and he decided that he was going to be very resolute in helping to heal his church and to make statements about reaching out to LBGT people, to remind us that everybody is a child of God. I don't see how any leader would dare to turn back on his outlook, on his passion for people, and on his passion for peace.
Jean-Laurie Chin, I know it's a difficult time. Thank you so much
for
sharing with us this morning.
Thank you, Pip, and my condolences to all our fellow Catholics, because we're feeling it deeply this morning.
I can
And to
understand.
you. Yes,
I can understand. Well,
you see, and exactly what Jean-Laurie Chin just said is the struggle that will occur now. And she said she doesn't see how anybody would want to turn back from where Francis has taken the church. But there are millions who want exactly that.
To do that.
To undo what he has done. And so this conclave is going to be closely watched. Yes, it's a religious ritual, but also a deeply political one. Because the Pope, of course, is the sovereign, the monarch of Vatican City, the leader of Vatican City. So he has a political role. And it will be closely watched for that reason.
And
because the tensions within the church now are going to be pulling in either direction.
And in a geopolitical climate, which is turning right, turning again to conservatism, it's going to empower those. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a look again at our obituary.
No, I think we have Mrs. Kylie McMorris. Kylie McMorris. She's the instituted lector of the Roman Catholic Church. She actually went to Rome in January of last year to be appointed by the Pope. And she's principal of the Convent of Mercy Academy. Alpha. Kimon is happy at that as an old girl of Alpha. Good morning.
Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cliff.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your immediate reaction to the passing of the Pontiff?
My immediate reaction, of course, is sadness. This man has provided for us a symbol of mercy and hope, which is integral to our faith. And his passing leaves avoid. As with anyone you love and respect and care for. But he has done his work, and it is really for us to continue it.
What does it mean to be appointed an instituted lector?
Yes.
Well, it means that we have the privilege, the honor, the responsibility of proclaiming the word. It is our duty as instituted lectors, and many people are lectors, but there are those who have been called to this formal institution to proclaim the word publicly as often as we are able, and usually if we are in church, we should volunteer and can be asked at any time to read the Bible in a public setting, especially at liturgy. But it also means that we should be willing to teach the faith through biblical work. So that is to break open that word wherever possible.
So you're an evangelist?
That's a way of speaking, yes, I am. But ours is really the proclamation of the word.
And for any Catholic, going to Rome, the eternal city, is just a huge privilege and a blessing. You went there in January 2024 to be appointed by Francis himself. What was that like?
As amazing and as awesome as you can hear it. Anyone who has the privilege of being invited by a pope, in their presence, that is unique. We see kings and queens clamoring for such a privilege. So to be in that presence in itself is a privilege. And it's a wonderful, humbling experience just to be there. So Rome is beautiful. The Vatican is amazing. But to be sitting within a few meters of the Pope and of all the faithful who are continuing the mission of Christ is really universally awesome experience.
What was the experience you'll never forget, being in that space with Pope Francis?
I think for me it was his humility. It was his humility. It was clear even then that he was in a great deal of pain. He came in, and the room is very cold, but he came in, and he took the time to meet each of us and call us by name.
Wow.
When he entered, it is normal when someone of higher office enters a space that people rise. But he was quick to ask his brother priest and for the lady waiting to sit, you know, as if to say, no, it's just me. It's just Francis. And that humility will always come through to me. The other experience was his intention to be universal. The fact that I was invited as a Catholic woman from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, with such a small population of Catholics by comparison. It was very intentional that he wanted someone from here. And that's the measure of the universal approach of the church through him.
Yeah. The church will be poorer this morning for his passing.
It will be. It will be. But we have been given a mission. We have been given a mission, and anyone who has been alive at this time understands mercy. And as pilgrims of hope this year, as the church celebrates this year, it's as if it is a clearer instruction of what we have to do.
Did you see the television pictures yesterday of him in the Pope Mobile working the crowds at St. Peter's Square?
Yes. I tell you, that is the man to the last, you know. I was not surprised. As I said, even last year, when he was in arguably better health, it was so clear that he was fighting, but he was just always fighting. Until his last breath, he intended to do this mission, to continue this mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying to Ricardo that when I saw the pictures yesterday, they left a lasting impression on me to hear the news this morning, because I thought he was struggling yesterday, but you could see that he was a man doing his job until the very last moment.
That's
Yeah?
right.
You know?
That's right. That's right. And in the faith, we began Easter yesterday, this time of the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
It could not actually have been better timed, to have lost him in Lent or in Holy Week would have been that symbolism of death, but this is a symbolism of new life. So,
Yes.
if he could have timed it, it could not have been better. But we are definitely poorer
Yeah.
for the loss of his presence.
Mrs. Kylie McMorris, she's an instituted lector of the Roman Catholic Church, appointed by Pope Francis in January of 2024. She's also principal of the Convent of Mercy Academy. You may know it as Alpha.
And by the way, let me tell you, what you ladies are doing with Alpha is just amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. I passed by the school a couple of occasions over the last several weeks, and the difference is obvious. The improvements are obvious. And the performance of the girls, better and better. Keep it up.
Thank you.
That's what a quality
Thank you.
Catholic education.
And,
correct.
results
That's
in.
correct.
Yes, and that's a fact.
Yes.
You know. And all I would say to you, ma'am, principal, is that we need to spread that to your colleagues across the road from you. Holy Trinity. Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Baston is doing a great job over there.
Yes.
And so is my colleague principal, Father Clark. He has brought Holy Trinity alive with his openness and humility. And, we try to work together very closely. My students go over there too. And so
Good.
we pray that inclusive Catholic education will continue to strengthen Jamaican people for years to come.
Ricardo, ma'am, that little 1 mile square area must be one of the most blessed and richest in terms of education.
Yes.
It is true.
Yeah. You have Alpha, Casey, Georges, Woolmers, all in that little area. It's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Kylie McMorris.
It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We continue to get reactions from ordinary Catholics in the pews. We have with us now the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dunstan Brand. He's also a member of St. Peter and Paul Church in Ligony. Good morning, Mr. Brand.
Morning, good morning to you and your listeners.
Good morning, Mr. Brand. You're a serious Catholic man. I didn't know.
From Cradle.
From Cradle. Your reactions to the passing of Pope Francis?
A very solemn and a very reflective day. Coming out of the Easter celebrations yesterday, our reflection at Peter and Paul at 9 o'clock Mass was around how the risen Christ should resonate in your lives. And you can see in the life of Pope Francis how his entire journey as a priest, bishop, archbishop, and then Pope reflected that testimony of the risen Christ in the world. Indeed, we are saddened at his passing. He was a transformational leader in his own way, and he brought to the Catholic Church a sort of reconciliation after a very difficult period, still a difficult period for us in the church, but he sought to bring about a sort of transformational moment when the church was required to go back to some of the fundamentals of being Christian: humility, love, the different aspects of carrying out your Christian journey in terms of what we call our works of mercy and our works of love, you know. So it's a reflective moment for all of us here in Jamaica as Roman Catholics.
Mm-hmm. We've been hearing all morning words like hope, humility, kindness in remembering Francis. What comes to mind when you think of his papacy?
Yeah, those are definitely the words. I recall that he's Jesuit, and you know, he reflected a lot of the Jesuit values in his papacy, in terms of just advocacy. Jesuits are known as soldiers of the church, and he reflected that sort of military spirit in terms of ensuring that the church returned to its core values, you know. And so in terms of his adherence to opening up wide the doors of the church to everyone, and ensuring that the church remembered clearly that we are called to love in all forms.
And for those who don't know, who are the Jesuits?
Okay, the Jesuits are their name is the Society of Jesus, an order of the church that was formed by Ignatius Loyola. And the Jesuits are a group of men, priests, who are called to ministry and to what we call evangelization. And their mission focuses on the spreading of the word through education, social justice. So you recall in the revolutions in South America, the Jesuits were very, 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 very present in that conversation in terms of bringing about the issue of social justice. Jesuits in Jamaica have been at the forefront of that conversation as well. You recall that we have had quite a number of Jesuits in education, a lot of our educational institutions.
St. George's College, Campion College.
Were formed by Jesuits. Jesuits also played a critical role in the formation of a lot of societies. So you remember that the credit union movement was in Jamaica was formed by the Catholic Church in the first instance, and it was also supported by the Jesuits in terms of ensuring that the economic activity of poor persons, because they couldn't access bank loans and they couldn't access bank resources, but the Jesuits understood the importance of saving and collective saving in terms of advancing your economic livelihood and empowering your poor, and transformation from a social protection and social justice perspective. They supported the movement called Solidarity, I believe it was. So that was a very important movement in the church. The first set of persons who built the Catholic Church, you know, the cathedral itself was built by Jesuits, and so there's a lot of history with that particular order in terms of its representation here in Jamaica and in the western side of the world and the world in general.
Mm-hmm. Dunstan, one final question. Yeah? Any trepidation I asked of Gene, I'm asking of you, who will succeed him?
Trepidation, no. Thou art Peter upon this rock, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. That's the foundation on which we believe that the papacy stands.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand that the arc on which we see the world through is very parochial as humans, but in the long run, it works out in accordance with God's plan. And so these intermittent points where we may have struggled as a church are a part of a longer story that is yet to be told. There have been, from a historical perspective, the church in the papacy has gone through far more complex and troubling times. When we had antipopes, we had 3 antipopes at a particular point in time in our history. So these are not issues, I believe, that will not be surmounted by the church, as we are on solid foundation of the rock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Dunstan Bryan, yes, former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Mr. Bryan reminds me that he's the current permanent secretary, just on leave.
Oh, yes, he's on leave. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
22 minutes after 7 o'clock, we are covering for you the breaking news. Pope Francis is dead at 88. Yes. After the break, we take a look back at the life of Pope Francis.
Is tough. You spend weeks, maybe months searching but still can't find the right fit. And even when you do, onboarding, payroll, and benefits become another headache. Stop wasting time. Let Talentbox Caribbean do the work at a fraction of the cost. From sourcing to interviewing, we do it all. Don't settle for the wrong hire. Schedule your strategy call today. Call 876-960-0066 or visit www.talentboxcaribbean.com. Talentbox Caribbean, connection made easy.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies, including plugs, switches, panel boards, and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Attention all wings lovers. KFC Saucy Wings with 2 new flavors. Mango habanero and buffalo. Spicy. KFC we have Saucy Wings. Delicious. Spicy the best. So a new KFC Saucy Wings crunch the rest. Nobody does wings like KFC. New Saucy Wings is for me.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Delicious, hot, and spicy wings tossed in savory mango habanero or buffalo sauce. Wings that will crunch the rest. New KFC Saucy Wings. It's finger-licking good.
What makes a Burrito Bond so attractive?
We have a history of strong financial performance and growth, demonstrating resilience.
Our leverage remains low relative to our peers.
The bond is available in both Jamaican and US dollars, ranging from tenures between 2 to 10 years at attractive interest rates. Plus, it's expected to be listed, which will enhance liquidity for all investors.
Burrito Bonds are Burrito strong. Download our prospectus, call a Burrito advisor, and invest today.
I saw something suspicious at work the other day and decided to speak out. I was afraid at first, but did it because corruption must stop. They never too liked the idea and even threatened to fire me. But I believe it's my duty to speak out against these things. Be a whistleblower and help eliminate corruption. Call the Integrity Commission at 876-968-6227 or email cpd@integrity.gov.jm.
A message from the Integrity Commission, United Against Corruption.
Max Steel Bakery, breads and buns and
Maxfield Bakery for breads and buns and bullets too. It's Maxfield Bakery for the best Easter bun. You know that's
Maxfield Easter bun, the juicy fruity Easter bun. Order online and send abroad at maxfieldbakery.com or call Maxfield Bakery at 926-2160 or 929-3897 and get yours before they're done. Skiata says so.
Yo, my boss. Yo, my general. Yo, my king. The new BK Mega Stacker. Come for run everything. Choose your style. Double, triple, or quad stack. Juicy grilled beef. Plus crispy bacon, some stackerific sauce, and layers of melted cheese. So if you think you can angle it, satisfy yourself today. Order the BK Mega Stacker and have it your way. The new BK Mega Stacker. Built for satisfaction. Limited time. Only at Burger King.
Outperform, outlast. With top performance. Jackhammer. Reliable, full stop, not comma. We have the expertise for drilling and demolition. We have the power tools for plumbers and electrician. Fancy select tools, 3 parts and 3 repairs. 3 parts, 3 repairs. 2 to 3 years. Hilton, available at Delta Supply, 106 Hagley Park Road. Call us at 876-302-6111-4. Delta Supply, we service what we sell.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales for a better choice in the electrical business.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Attention all wings lovers. KFC Saucy Wings with 2 new flavors. Mango habanero and buffalo. Spicy. KFC we have Saucy Wings. Delicious. Spicy the best. So a new KFC Saucy Wings crunch the rest. Nobody does wings like KFC. New Saucy Wings is for me.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Delicious, hot, and spicy wings tossed in savory mango habanero or buffalo sauce. Wings that will crunch the rest. New KFC Saucy Wings. It's finger licking good.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales for a better choice in the electrical business.
Give up every illegal gun. Call the police at 119 or Crime Stop at 311. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
7:30.
Fix up with Fleetwood products for your home improvement, personal care, and aromatherapy needs. They have your well-being in mind. Available at retailers island-wide. The temperature by Fleetwood Jamaica is
27 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston. It's 26 in the Mid-Island, in Western Jamaica, 26, and 21 in Mid-Island, Mandeville. Western Jamaica, 26, and 21 in Mid-Island, Mandeville. 26 and 21. Good morning once again. You're listening to Nationwide at 90 FM. I'm Cliff Hughes.
I'm Ricardo Brooks. Good morning, Cliff. Good morning, listeners.
Good morning. And we're giving you continuing coverage of the news out of Rome. Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. And the world is waking up to the news and reacting. And we're going to be joined now, Ricardo, by
Father Don Chambers. Father Don is the General Secretary of the Antilles Episcopal Conference, which is a grouping of the bishops of the Caribbean. Good morning, Father.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Well, a little sad, mixed feelings, sad, but at the same time joyful, because a man who has led the church for the past over a decade has really transformed not just the church, but the world. So it is sad, but at the same time joyful about his tremendous contribution to making this world a different place.
That's huge. Transform not only the church, but the world, Father Chambers. Why?
Yes.
How so?
You know, when he became Pope, he wrote an encyclical called Joy of the Gospel. And in that encyclical, he really set out his missionary mandate for the church and for the world. And one of the pivotal points in that encyclical was his preferential option for the poor, that the church must prioritize the marginalized, and two, that economic systems must serve human dignity and not exploit it. And you see that acting out in his mission. He always kept countries in conflict on the radar for the world. The sufferings of the people in Palestine, the people in Sudan, Haiti, and he was always present to them. And he was not fearful of challenging political leaders to ensure, for example, that the migrants treated with dignity. So he, for me, was a beacon of hope in the world and show the world how we should live. Care for the poor and care for the earth that we live on.
Father, there are some who say Francis went too far in being transformational, that he undid too much of the tradition that has guided the church. Would you share that assessment?
Well, you know, they would have said the same thing about Jesus Christ, you know, when he came. You know, any leader who chooses to be transformational, you know, are going to get licks. They're going to critique him badly. But you know, the church was in need of that transformation, and he saw himself as the person who was best equipped to do so. You know, for example, the economic systems of the Vatican, a lot of it was done behind the scenes. There was lack of transparency. And then he came and he says, hey, listen, you know, we have to have more transparency. We have to follow the economic systems and rules and principles of the European Union. And the Vatican Bank needs to be, you know, run like a bank. So, yeah, there are persons who say he went too far, but that's the nature of transformational leadership. They will always be critiqued as going too far, but it was needed. It was necessary.
Go ahead.
Why do you say the church needed that transformation? Why do you think so?
The church needed in many ways. I think, for example, in one way, I think fundamentally, let's go back to basics. Again, his encyclical, The Joy of the Gospel, what is fundamental to him was that the gospel brings joy to all who encounter Christ. And that Christians must share this joy through their missionary zeal. The church had gotten so bureaucratic. The church had gotten so clerical. And by clerical, it means the dominance of male leadership at every level of the church. And you know, he's saying that, hey, listen, we are supposed to be the people of God. The people of God are the bishops, priests, laity religious men, women, who walk together on the missionary journey of the church. So one of the things he did, for example, was to include women in leadership position within the Roman Curia. And the Roman Curia really refers to the management arm, the bureaucratic arm of the Vatican, and giving women a greater place. Because one of the things he kept saying that women come with a different perspective. And that perspective needed to be included in the management and the running of the church. So in that respect, I think, he was transformational.
Irony of ironies. The last world leader he met hours before his passing was President J.D. Vance.
Vice President.
Yes,
Vice President J.D. Vance. And Vance comes from the Trump administration, which symbolizes the drift, the return to the right, conservatism. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And he found time, however brief it was yesterday. And now he will go down as the last world leader to have met Francis, the liberal Pope. Yes?
Right.
What do you make of that?
Irony of ironies. It's the mysterious ways, I think, in which God works. Mysterious way in which God works. I believe that he wanted personally to meet with Vance as a Catholic, a Catholic to a Catholic. And again, he wanted to give his 2 cents on the issue of migrants and making it very clear that the position of the church and the position of Jesus Christ is that migrants must be treated with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is not just an irony, it's a powerful sign of how God works in mysterious ways. Mm-hmm. Bringing together, as you say, someone who represents a government that is anti-migrant, meeting with someone who's saying, listen, migrants are humans, they must be treated with dignity. And I think it's also not just it's more than an irony, because at the beginning of his pontificate, the migrant issues was his first, was top on his list. Remember his first pastoral visit was to Lampedusa, that island in the south of Italy, to meet migrants. That was his first pastoral ministry. And the day before he dies, he meets a political leader who is anti-migrant to give his last message. Migrants are people that needed to be treated with dignity. For me, that's more than an irony. It's a sign, it's a prophetic sign. For me, that's a prophetic sign of what his pontificate was all about, with treating people with human dignity.
From where you sit now, Father Chambers, in 15 days, the Prince of Cardinals will begin to gather to choose Francis's successor. Yeah? What are we looking at? Who are we looking at?
That's
a good Catholic never guesses, right, Father?
My response to that question is that Pope Francis has spent the last 5 years or so ensuring that the members of the College of Cardinals are, many of whom are coming from the South, the global South. Number two, he has been transformational in the sense that in the past, when you were an archbishop of, say, the city of New York or the city of Los Angeles or the city of Washington, D.C., automatically you became a cardinal. He has changed that. The men that he has placed in the College of Cardinals, and those are the ones who will be voting for the next pontiff, are persons, bishops from the global South, from very poor dioceses in the world, such as Indonesia, such as the Philippines, Africa. And I think that my prediction is that the trend will continue, that his successor is going to be from the global South.
The global South.
The odds are likely, yeah.
Asia, Africa, more than likely.
Yeah.
All right. How are members of their community across the Caribbean reacting this morning, Father Chambers?
Well, I think the dominant message is a shock. Persons, many of them saw the Holy Father blessing the pilgrims who came to Rome for the Jubilee on Easter Sunday. They received this blessing, his annual Easter blessing. Some would have also seen him going through the crowd and blessing persons. So, again, he was up front. He was with persons. Some persons commented, "Yeah, he looked a little weak. He looked a little frail. You know, his voice was weak." So persons are shocked because they saw him yesterday. They thought he was recovering well, and then today they received the sad news. So persons are expressing shock. But I think also I'm picking up the sense that persons are also filled with joy because, he was a man of joy. He wrote his first encyclical about joy, and he was a man of joy in his smiles. And they felt that, yes, he has run a good race, and he has put the church in good standing for the next generation. So, yes, shock. But at the same time, I picked up a sense of joy.
Thank you, Father Donald Chambers, who is the General Secretary of the Antilles Episcopal Conference, a grouping of bishops in the Caribbean. And if I do say so, Cliff,
thank you.
One of my favorite priests.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's a group of bishops from the English, Dutch, and the French-speaking countries of the Caribbean.
Yes.
And our headquarters is in Port of Spain, Trinidad.
All right. Thank you, Father.
Just before we go to the obituary, 15 to 20 days from today, the Prince of Cardinals, who will elect Francis's successors, will shut the doors of the Sistine Chapel to pick his successor. It is said to be the largest conclave in the history of the faith, and also one of the most unpredictable. Yeah. Did you see the movie Conclave?
I did.
Yes. I'm sure there's going to be a surge in interest now to have a look at it again. Yes. After the break, the rise of Francis.
The Time, brought to you by Bird Shack Fried Chicken. Burrata. Buy a 3-piece hat-trick meal and get an extra piece free for a limited time only is
7:45.
At Hawkeye, our mission is to deliver cutting-edge security solutions to help you keep track of the things you value most.
The temperature by Hawkeye is
7. It's 27 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston, 26 in Montego Bay, and a little cooler in Mandeville, where it's 21.
Strong financial records are the backbone of every successful business. Let Dodge & Global handle your accounting needs from bookkeeping to financial reporting so you can focus on growth. Call us at 876-929-3670 or 876-926-5210. Email us at info@dodgen.global or visit us at dodgen.global. Dodgen Global, we make numbers work for you.
Want to reduce your high electricity bills? Then Peak Energy has the solution for you. From grid tie to hybrid solar inverters with full lithium-ion battery pack. Installation and maintenance packages available. Visit us at Shop 1, 3 Mosquito Valley Road, Red Hill, St. Andrew. Call 876-279-8820 or 944-0668. Or email us at peakenergysolutionsja@gmail.com. Peak Energy for everything solar.
New KFC saucy wings. Attention all wings lovers. KFC saucy wings with 2 new flavors. Mango habanero and buffalo. Hot, spicy. KFC we have
New KFC Saucy Wings. Delicious, hot, and spicy wings tossed in savory mango habanero or buffalo sauce. Wings that will crunch the rest. New KFC Saucy Wings. It's finger licking good.
The kitchen isn't just a room. It's where life happens, where meals are made, stories are shared, and memories take shape. At Active Home Center, we help you design a kitchen that works for you. Stylish cabinets, top quality appliances, stunning countertops, sleek faucets, sinks, and cabinet pulls. Everything in one place. Sit with our experienced kitchen experts and bring your dream kitchen to life. Your dream kitchen starts here. Visit us in Kingston at 84 Constant Spring Road. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
You ever get bun yet? The bun was sweet so much you can't resist. Me not talk about heartbreak. Me not talk about the bun was full of spice, raisin, and the perfect glaze. Mother's Bakery Easter bun. This is the bun where everybody need this Easter. If you don't get bun, you not live life right. Mother's Bakery Easter bun. Get the best type of bun from the right people. Mother's Bakery Easter bun. The bun you have to get with love in every bite. Available in select supermarkets.
"12 minutes going up to 8 o'clock. If you're just waking up to the news of the passing of Pope Francis. He died this morning at 07:35 in Rome at the age of 88 after spending about 35 days in the hospital, and he left us this morning. This is an obituary, a tribute to Pope Francis, written and produced by Ricardo Brooks of Nationwide.
Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on December 17, 1936. Before studying for the priesthood, Bergoglio was a chemical technician. He joined the Jesuit Order of Priests in 1958. He was ordained a priest 9 years later, in 1969. Bergoglio quickly rose to prominence and was eventually elected the provincial leader of the Jesuits in Argentina in 1979. During his time as a priest, he became the subject of controversy after he was accused of handing over 2 priests to be tortured by the military dictatorship that ran the country during the years of the Dirty War. The allegations have never been proven, and a criminal complaint filed against Bergoglio was dismissed. The humble and soft-spoken Bergoglio was eventually appointed an auxiliary bishop by Pope John Paul II in 1992. He chose as his personal motto the scripture from the Gospel of Matthew that says, "Because he saw him through eyes of mercy and chose him." That theme of mercy would become a defining one in his leadership of the Church. In 1998, Pope John Paul elevated Bergoglio to lead the influential Archdiocese of Buenos Aires. 3 years later, the Pope named him a prince of the Church, appointing him a cardinal. Despite his princely status in the Church, Bergoglio focused his attention on the people living in the slums of the city. Stories are told of how he would often be seen taking public transportation and sharing meals with the poor and destitute. Bergoglio also refused to live in the palatial archbishop's residence, choosing instead to reside in a modest apartment. He also refused an extensive domestic staff, choosing to cook his own meals. His personal humility endeared him to the people of Buenos Aires. He became known as the Cardinal who was open to dialogue. When Pope John Paul died in 2005, several sources from inside the conclave to elect his successor have reported that it was Bergoglio who was the runner-up to Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger of Germany, who was elected Pope Benedict XVI. Bergoglio did not have to wait long. When Benedict stunned the Catholic world in 2013 by becoming the first pope in nearly 600 years to voluntarily resign the office, the College of Cardinals turned to Bergoglio. On the evening of March 13, 2013, the simple priest from Argentina was elected the 266th Bishop of Rome and Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. That decision was announced to the world in Latin.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. Eminentissimum ac reverendissimum Dominum Georgium Marium, Sancte Romani Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio, qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
Translated, it means, I announce to you a great joy. We have a Pope, the most eminent and most reverend Lord Jorge Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, Mario Bergoglio, who has taken the name Francis. Bergoglio took the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, a saint known for his humility and love for the poor. Emerging on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica that March night, the new Pope Francis thrilled the thousands of Catholic faithful gathered in the famous St. Peter's Square when he greeted them in Italian with a simple, brothers and sisters, good evening.
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera. Voi sapete che il dovere del conclave era di dare un vescovo a Roma. Sembra che i miei fratelli cardinali sono andati a prenderlo quasi alla fine del mondo, ma siamo qui. Vi ringrazio l'accoglienza, la comunità diocesana di Roma, al suo vescovo. Grazie.
Fully translated, Francis's first comments to the world were, quote, "You know that the duty of the conclave was to give a bishop to Rome. It seems that my brother cardinals went almost to the end of the world to get him, but here we are. I thank you for this welcome by the diocesan community of Rome to its bishop. Thank you." End quote. It was a break from the past where popes greeted the faithful not as an equal but as the so-called vicar of Christ and successor of St. Peter. That simple act on a rainy night in Rome would come to define Francis's approach to the leadership of the Catholic Church. Francis took control of the Church amid the crisis of the worldwide sex abuse scandal that had exposed hundreds of predatory priests and shamed ordinary Catholics in the pews. Over the last 12 years of his papacy, Francis has dramatically reshaped the Catholic Church. He has refused the trappings of the office, wearing simple vestments and living in a modest convent rather than the apostolic palace in the Vatican City. But it is on doctrine and church teaching where Francis has had the most significant impact. He had focused the church on the climate crisis and the plight of the poor, advocated for a more merciful approach to gay and lesbian Catholics, and urged priests around the world to be more open to forgiving those involved in abortions. He also significantly restricted the celebration of the Mass in Latin. These moves won Francis the admiration and praise of the Church's liberal wing and those pushing for change to centuries-old doctrine against same-sex marriage, abortion, and ordaining women as priests. But the conservatives in the Church condemned what they saw as heresy and a lack of clarity from the leader of the worldwide Catholic Church. When asked about his views on gay Catholics, the Pope simply responded, "Who am I to judge?" In 2023, when Francis gave permission for priests to bless same-sex couples, the opposition was intense. Catholic leaders in Africa were some of the Pope's most strident critics. Some African bishops accused Francis of causing heresy in the Catholic Church.
major concern is that this document looks to us like a heresy, it reads like a heresy, and it effects heresy. The document asks us to bless two people of same sex as individuals, but not as a couple. So these two people of same sex who the previous night slept together like a couple and present themselves to us as a couple are blessed as individuals, but they leave our presence as a couple. They go to their home as a couple. They sleep in the same bed as a couple. But the document says that they are not blessed as a couple, although they appear to have been blessed like a couple. How could this be not changing the authentic teaching of the church?
Despite the criticisms, Francis never wavered from the promotion of mercy, peace, and compassion for all humanity. He called on Catholics to be a light in the world. Now, Francis has prayed his last rosary, offered his last blessing, and sung his final hallelujah. Catholics around the world turn their eyes to the Vatican, where voting members of the College of Cardinals will gather to elect a new pope. Francis, servant of the servants of God, vicar of Christ on earth, Bishop of Rome, Pope, dead at 88.
Well
Two
done,
minutes.
Ricardo Brooks.
Thank you. 2 minutes going up to 8 o'clock. If you're just joining us, the news across the world, flashing all across the world. Pope Francis, the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, has died. He died aged 88 this morning, 7:35 Rome time, inside the Vatican. What's happening now? Cliff, the Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, that's his title, a man known as Cardinal Kevin Farrell, is presiding over the process of moving the Pope's body into a coffin, where it will be taken then to St. Peter's Basilica for the faithful to start to pay their final respects. Of course, the crowds are gathering in St. Peter's Square, which is a tradition when this happens. Then, of course, cardinals from across the world will be making their preparations to head to Rome. And a bit of information that we got, I did say to you that one of the men who could emerge Pope was Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines. He was the Archbishop of Manila in the Philippines. He was scheduled actually to be in Jamaica in May.
He is scheduled.
Well, I say was because I
may
doubt
change.
it will. That will go ahead. But yeah, so he could very well emerge the next pope. The odds say he has a pretty good chance. He was a close confidant of Francis, appointed he was by Pope Benedict. So he has some amount of cred with the liberal and conservative wing, and he's a young man, a very joyful type of guy. You know, he is warm, pastoral, and then of course he represents that from the third world, from the developing world, the global south, that we heard being mentioned. So we'll watch that to see how that unfolds. Tagle, Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines, was scheduled to be in Jamaica next month. It is to be seen now whether that will go ahead. He was supposed to meet with the Caribbean bishops here in Kingston. It's to be seen whether that will go ahead now.
Yeah. We are going to continue to get reactions, but just out of our public interest, when you were assigned to do that obituary, talk us through that a little.
I mean, it's surreal because obviously you're preparing something for an event that has not yet come, and there's some trepidation about, I suppose, writing somebody off because he was still alive at the time, gravely ill, but still alive. But the standard certainly set here is that we must be prepared for any eventuality. And so calling around to try to get people to comment on the record at that time, they were also nor record a sort of in poor taste. Let's just wait to see how it unfolds. So I had to make do with the information.
Which is exactly why I want us to talk about it, because in our job, we've got to be prepared for mornings, for days like these. Yes? When all listeners, all viewers turn to us, yes, about a significant, prominent person who has passed, to look back at their career, their lives, the stories. And you've got to be prepared to do it, yeah, in the moment. And I say to you all and to our listeners, it is part of the work to be prepared. Yeah, it's not being insensitive, it's being ready. Yeah, and fortunately or unfortunately, we got time, because the signs were there that Francis was gravely ill. Yeah, and it's a similar thing to do with our national leaders.
Yes.
Yes, when you get to a certain point, it's a road we all travel and have to travel. And as responsible news organizations of record, we've got to be ready.
3 minutes after 8, we're up on our next break. We take the break, come back with more. Pope Francis, dead at 88.
Coconut Industry Board is celebrating 80 years of serving Jamaica's coconut farmers. The Coconut Industry Board, seeding for the future. The time brought to you by the Coconut Industry Board is
4 minutes after 8.
Success, powered by learning. The temperature, brought to you by Sandals Corporate University. Come grow with us is
27 degrees Celsius here in Kingston, 26 out west in Montego Bay, and it's 21 in Mandeville.
4 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we're going to get a reaction now from the government of Jamaica through the Minister of
Information, but I believe she's appearing in her capacity as a Roman Catholic.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
The Minister of Information, Dr. Dana Morris Dixon. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you both. What a sad morning.
Sad morning, and I was quickly put down by my producer. You're not reacting as government of Jamaica, but as a Catholic.
I am.
Yes. Your reaction to the passing of Pope Francis.
It's really, really a sad morning. I woke up, and as I always do, I check the news, and I saw it, and I remember seeing him yesterday when he, quite surprisingly, went out to bless the persons who were there at the Vatican for Easter Sunday service, and he looked really frail. But I thought, oh wow, he's able to do this. He really wanted to do this. I mean, Easter Sunday, it is the reason that we are Christians. It's about Jesus rising from the dead. He is risen. It's such an important point in Christianity. And so for him to have been able to push himself when he knew he was near the end is even more poignant this morning when you think back at what he did yesterday. But it is a sad morning. He is a pope, from the developing world, which is important in and of itself. And also the work that he did in terms of pushing for peace. He kept constantly talking about peace in the world. He was one for social justice, equality, all the issues that we in Jamaica hold very dear. We talk about a lot. He was speaking about them on a global stage. And he was an exceptional pope.
And Minister, as a public servant, are there any lessons you take from the life, the work of Pope Francis in terms of doing your own job?
Of course, I do. When you see his name, he took the name Francis in terms of Francis of Assisi, and that was a very simple thing. And he decided that that's the name he wanted, right? And he was a simple person. I mean, he was this big figure, but he understood that as leader, he also needed to be close to the people. And so he didn't live in the big palatial space for Pope. He decided to live in the guest house. He loved being around people. On Thursday, he was with prisoners. You know, he was someone who understood that even if you have all the trappings of, you know, what's called leadership or power, so it means nothing if you're not truly committed to the people. Your mission is about people, making people's lives better, making people feel seen, making people feel heard. And I have learned from that example of, you know, simplicity. Live a simple life and try to understand why you are there. You're not there for yourself. You're not there for your own glory. You are there to serve, and that's why he was. He was always serving the church and the people of God.
And for you as a practicing Catholic senator, his legacy,
Well,
what will that be?
His legacy would be one who, you know, in spite of, you know, what anyone would have thought in terms of global affairs, he spoke his truth, and he spoke biblically too, you know. So, you know, it was quite interesting to see some of the visitors in the last days too. He had an impact, and he would speak. He spoke about the wars in the world. He constantly spoke about the wars in the world. He would not let them be forgotten. He spoke about climate change and the importance of us protecting this world that has been given to us, and we've been given charge of it. And so he was one who was just so very committed to peace in this world, committed to the poor, committed to the disadvantaged. And that's going to be his legacy. And I think we're always going to remember Pope Francis for that simplicity, that connection with the people, and that commitment to serving them and not serving, you know, the trappings of being Pope.
Minister Dana Morris Dixon, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Bye-bye.
You know, as I listened to the minister, we also spoke, of course, the prominent Secretary Brand, and there are so many, Jean-Laure Chin, there's so many other prominent Catholics, so many prominent Catholic institutions in this country. You probably would be surprised to learn, listeners, that there are only 50,000 Catholics in Jamaica. Roman Catholics make up just 2% of the population in Jamaica, but punches above their weight in terms of their influence on this society. Just 50,000 Catholics, 2% of our population,
and that's been declining.
It has been declining. Which is why I suppose for many Catholics, Francis has been such a, I keep hearing the word revolutionary leader, because under his papacy in the global south, the Catholic Church has really exploded.
Yes.
Places like Africa, South America, and other parts of the Caribbean, certainly the church has been growing, even though declining in other power centers such as Europe or North America. World leaders are reacting, Cliff, listeners. Former President Barack Obama has paid tribute. He says Pope Francis was the rare leader who made us want to be better people. In his humility and his gestures at once simple and profound, embracing the sick, ministering to the homeless, washing the feet of young parishioners and prisoners, he shook us out of our complacency and reminded us that we are all bound by moral obligations to God and one another. He says, I mourn with everyone around the world, Catholic and non-Catholic alike, who drew strength and inspiration from the Pope's example. May we continue to heed his call to, quote, never remain on the sidelines of this march of living hope, end quote. Still no word from, I certainly haven't seen it, from the incumbent president of the United States, who had a testy relationship with Francis. Not seeing anything yet from the Donald Trump. Of course, his vice president is a practicing Catholic and met with the Pope just yesterday. yes, for Easter Sunday. 11 minutes after 8, if you're just joining us, the news is that Pope Francis, the leader of the worldwide Catholic communion, 1.4 million Catholics, he's dead. The Catholic Church now without a pope. And all eyes will turn to the Vatican, where the College of Cardinals will elect a pope in about 2 weeks, 15 days, 16 days.
Yeah.
That process will start. Former President Joe Biden, himself a practicing Catholic, he's also reacted. He says it is with great sadness that Jill and I learned of the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. He was unlike any who came before him. Francis will be remembered as one of the most consequential leaders of our time, and I am better for having known him. For decades, he served the most vulnerable across Argentina, and his mission of serving the poor never ceased. As Pope, he was a loving pastor and challenging teacher who reached out to different faiths. He commanded us to fight for peace and protect our planet from a climate crisis. He advocated for the voiceless and powerless. He made all feel welcome and seen by the Church. He promoted equity and an end to poverty and suffering across the globe. And above all, he was a pope for everyone. He was the people's pope, a light of faith, hope, and love. Former President of the United States, Joe Biden, a practicing Catholic, I believe the second Catholic President of the United States after
Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy. Yes.
The New York Times is saying, quote, in his final years, slowed by a bad knee, intestinal surgery, and respiratory ailments that sapped his breath and voice, Francis used a cane and then a wheelchair, seemingly a diminished figure. But that was a misleading impression. He continued to travel widely, focusing on exploited and war-torn parts of Africa, where he excoriated modern-day colonizers and sought peace in South Sudan. His insistence on shaking up the status quo earned him no shortage of enemies. He demoted conservatives in Vatican offices, restricted the use of the old Latin Mass, dared to traditionalists, opened influential meetings of bishops to lay people, including women, allowed priests to bless same-sex couples, and made clear that transgender people could be godparents and that their children could be baptized. He also refused to endorse calls to deny communion to Catholic politicians supportive of abortion rights, including when he was president, Joseph R. Biden Jr., who said Francis had called him a good Catholic.
Mm-hmm. And again, that passage you just read perfectly sums up the challenges that Francis took on. That argument, for example, of demoting conservatives, he did that. I think, for example, of the cardinal from the United States, who was the head of what is essentially the Supreme Court of the Vatican. And he swiftly demoted him. And the more, though some of the more conservative bishops in the United States criticized him, was the more he pushed back. He stripped one of them, for example, in Texas, of his office. Mm-hmm. He became increasingly antagonistic towards that conservative wing. He called them out of date, clerical, not realizing where the church needed to go. Just to continue to give you a flavor of what the world leaders are saying, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, he says from Buenos Aires to Rome, Pope Francis wanted the church to bring joy and hope to the poorest, to unite people with one another and with nature. May this hope to be reborn endlessly beyond him. To all Catholics, to a grieving world, my wife and I send our thoughts.
All right. We're going to take our next break on our continuing coverage of the death of Pope Francis.
Apply for your NHD refunds at nhd.gov.jm or via the NHD app. Do not click on any links offering to help you. The time by the NHD is
16 minutes after 8.
Fontana Pharmacy has a wide variety of items from pharmaceuticals, household, cosmetics, toys, and more. The temperature by Fontana Pharmacy, it's all good inside, is
28 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston, 27 in the western city of Montego Bay, and it's a cool 21 in Mandeville.
Yo, my boss. Yo, my general. Yo, my king. The new BK Mega Stacker. Come for run everything. Choose your style. Double, triple, or quad stack. Juicy grilled beef. Plus crispy bacon, some stackerific sauce, and layers of melted cheese. So if you think you can angle it, stackify yourself today. Order the BK Mega Stacker and have it your way. The new BK Mega Stacker. Built for satisfaction. Limited time. Only at Burger King.
Commercial spaces for you. Parks and attractions for you. Housing and residential developments for you. Beautiful rental properties for you. Improving quality of life through infrastructure development across Jamaica for you. The Urban Development Corporation, making development happen for you. Brought to you by the Urban Development Corporation.
UDC for you.
Come to Stewart's Hardware 2-day spring super sale. Friday, April 25th and Saturday, April 26th. 2 days filled with super discounts. Get cement, steel, tiles, blocks, paint, plumbing, power tools, and lots more at super sweet prices. You simply can't afford to miss Stewart's Hardware spring sale. That's April 25th and 26th. There'll be fantastic savings just for you. Stewart's Hardware and Home Center, building values.
In this uncertain U.S. immigration climate, you need expert guidance you can trust. The Consular Queen LLC handles visas, waivers, petitions, and more, making immigration stress-free. Don't navigate the process alone. Get professional support today. Call 470-593-8448 now. That's 470-593-8448. The Consular Queen. Unite families, change lives. 470-593-8448. Secure your future today.
Minutes after 8 o'clock. It's Easter Monday morning. Yes, you didn't expect to hear me this morning.
Certainly not me.
But we're here because we're covering for you the passing of Pope Francis at 88. He died at 7:35 this morning, local time in Rome. And the world is reacting to his passing. Yes. We're going to dip into the BBC to get a flavor of what they are reporting on the BBC. Or we're not able to make that connection. All right.
Mm-hmm. So, again, more reactions from Argentina. The leader of Argentina, Milei,
yes,
he says the Argentinian Republic, a country of long Catholic tradition and the birthplace of Pope Francis, profoundly laments the death of His Holiness and sends its condolences to the Bergoglio family. Of course, Francis also had a testy relationship with the leadership of his homeland.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever went there.
He never went there as Pope.
Yeah.
Never did. And because Argentina has had a difficult political history with military rulers and dictators, yes? Even Milei now having problems there.
Yeah.
So he has never been back there. But he's known as the priest of Buenos Aires.
Mm-hmm. Humble man. Minister Dixon talked about the fact that he didn't live in the apostolic palace as his predecessors did, instead choosing to live in the guest house, essentially, of the Vatican. He never wore those famous red shoes. He did not wear the elaborate garments of the papacy, choosing simple garments. He didn't wear the gold cross, wearing a simple silver cross. And the fisherman's ring that I spoke about earlier, other popes had an elaborate gold ring, which was a simple silver ring. 15 to 20 days from now, the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church will gather in Rome to participate in what is known as the papal conclave. That's a process used to elect a pope, and it's a centuries-old
and fascinating process.
It is. And watching it, and you know, for a lot of Catholics, I think that's part of the charm, if you will, of being Catholic. The pomp and the ceremony that attends to it. So they gather in their red vestments, they process into the historic Sistine Chapel. They all have assigned positions, and then they vote. And in voting, Cliff listeners, how the outside world would know if there's a pope is by smoke.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no communication, modern
white
communication.
smoke
will
tell you
that a pope has been elected.
We have a pope.
Habemus papam.
Yes.
Is the Latin that you will hear from the cardinal deacon who announces it, and then you will hear which cardinal has been elected if he accepts election. Of course, voting can go on for many rounds. I think they vote twice in the morning, twice in the afternoon each day, and until someone reaches that magic number.
And if you go in as a favorite, you're bound not to be pope.
I mean, well, in recent times, not so much. Ratzinger went in as a favorite. He definitely came out as pope. And Bergoglio actually went in as a favorite and came out as pope. He was the runner-up to Ratzinger in 2005. And then, of course, in 2013, he did emerge as a pope. So it is to be seen if Cardinal Luis Tagle of the Philippines, of Manila, all eyes are on him. Eyes are also on bishops and archbishops in Africa who could potentially emerge as pope. But I think it's a safe bet, I think, that the pope will be from the global south.
Yes. Let's listen to the BBC.
At Mass, and I saw the Pope, and he looked just so fragile, you know.
Moments of a bit of sadness and at the same time thankfulness and celebration of life.
It's a great disappointment, a great loss. A man who has innovated the church and a man who has left a great mark. And this absence causes great pain.
Great emotion, a great emptiness, yes. We will miss him.
Yesterday he talked about all the wars in the world, Ukraine, Burma, and even Gaza. I'm so sad.
So just some of that reaction there from St. Peter's Square, just outside, of course, St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, where earlier on today we heard the news of Pope Francis's death. We can cross over live to Rome because my colleague Rupert Wingfield-Hayes joins us. And Rupert, we talk about this as not being surprising, but still you do get that sense of shock.
Yeah, you could hear it in the voices of people there, and we've been out on the square talking to people as well just in the last hour or so. And now I think the thing is, Cassia, with Pope Francis is a lot of people felt like he was a very different pope from his predecessors. If you think of Pope Benedict, who was really an academic and a theologian, well, Pope Francis was none of those. Well, he obviously was a theologian, but he was also a real warm human being, a sort of man of the people, someone who touched people when he met them. And you get this people talking about his extraordinary smile and how delighted he was whenever he went around the world and made visits to other countries and met with Catholic faithful. He had this incredible warmth and this bright, shining smile on his face when he took part in events. And I think that's the impression that he has left on people. There's all the stuff about, reforming the Catholic Church. That's very important as well. People worried that the Catholic Church might change direction after his death. But I think more than anything else, it is his personality that defines Pope Francis, and that's what people now say they are going to miss.
Exactly that. And it's fascinating that you pick up on that smile because, Rupert, I had the privilege of being at one of the Wednesday audiences and his smile is just so infectious, and especially when he's greeted by children. How many thousands upon thousands of children must he have blessed? And yet he just always continues to smile and always seems to be so happy, genuinely happy to see members of his flock and non-Catholics as well.
Yes, and we saw him blessing children just yesterday afternoon in St. Peter's Square. We were standing there as his Pope-mobile went past. He looked extremely sick, very frail, very weak, but people were still handing babies up to him to be blessed. But at the same time, I think what we saw yesterday was perhaps Pope Francis determined to come out for the Easter ceremony, despite the fact that he clearly was very, very unwell. This is what has driven him all his time in the papacy and all of his life, actually, is that this mission to be with the faithful. And his doctors had said to him he needed more time to rest, he needed more time to recover, but he was determined to go back to work as soon as possible as he could after this extremely serious illness. I'm not sure that everybody realised just how serious it was. Double pneumonia. He nearly died on several occasions when he was in hospital, we understand, but he fought through and began recovering. But then he went back to work almost immediately. And, I think a lot of his medical advisors said that was not wise, but that was the sort of person he was. He wanted to be out there doing his job as the leader of the church.
Yes, and our understanding is he even met J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, on just hours, arguably, before his then death. He was somebody who really wanted to continue to work, and we know that even His Royal Majesty King Charles and Queen Camilla, they were due to meet him at the beginning of April during the British royal family's state visit to Italy, but that was then postponed. But then a private meeting was held. He'd only just been released from hospital.
That's right. And as I just said, a lot of this was against the wishes of his medical team, but he was determined to do it. You mentioned the meeting with Vice President Vance yesterday, which Vice President Vance is an important figure in American politics, and so the Pope would meet an important Catholic, even if he didn't necessarily agree with him. But it brings us to another point, which is Pope Francis's moral leadership, and he was prepared to speak out on difficult things that concerned him. He was prepared to criticise foreign governments like the Trump administration on issues like immigration, which he did when President Trump took office again earlier this year. And I think that's another reason why a lot of younger people had such admiration for him, because he was prepared to take a moral stand and criticise things around the world, whether it be war or human rights abuses. On all sorts of issues, he was prepared to take a stand and criticise governments, even though, it caused problems with him in his relations inside, between the Catholic Church and powerful political figures around the world.
Yeah, he was pretty forthright, wasn't he? Rupert, thank you as always just for talking us through that. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes there joining us from Rome. Thank you very much. We're just getting a few lines from the Vatican. Just to update you that the Vatican is saying that there will be public prayer for Pope Francis from 5:30 GMT. So that will be, I believe, 5:30, 7:30 local time at St. Peter's Square. And also the Vatican just communicating that Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the person who we saw give the statement, announce the death of the Pope, Cardinal Farrell will preside over the rite of the declaration of death and the placing of the body in the coffin. And our understanding is that that will happen later on this evening, and that then as early as Wednesday, the Pope's body will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica. So just a few lines as to what our understanding is in the next few days. And then, of course, we will have that conclave, which will then decide upon a new pontiff. But right now, we reflect upon Pope Francis, the late Pope Francis, who has died at the age of 88. And we heard there from Rupert that King Charles and Queen Camilla were among some of the last people to meet the Pope in person. Of course, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, the very last person of international significance there. Now, the King and Queen's state visit was to the Vatican. It had been cancelled this month because of the Pope's ill health, but he was well enough to hold that private meeting with them. They are among many who have been paying their own tributes to the Pope since his death was announced this morning, as my colleague Jo Inwood reports.
In St. Peter's Square, in the shadow of the balcony where just 24 hours before he had made what would turn out to be his last appearance, the news of the death of Pope Francis quickly spread. Even for those who had seen him speak, looking so frail, the news was no less shocking.
I was sort of really shocked because I was here yesterday at Mass and I saw the Pope and he looked just so fragile, you know.
I was just on the phone to my mother and she said you guys were so lucky to receive that last blessing for him. But also it was so difficult to see him in that state because he was always such a smiling Pope, such a happy Pope.
I find it very significant that the Pope has died during Easter or the Easter weekend. I'm from Argentina, the Pope is Argentinian, so, it has quite a bit of significance for us.
In Jerusalem's old city, they marked his passing. In the Philippines, home to millions of Catholics, special mass was said for their spiritual leader. Prayers were said in Nigeria. In Jakarta, where there is a small but devout Catholic population. While in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, a land in the grip of violent uprising, people paused to pay their respects. Pope Francis was a leader who reached beyond the world's 1.2 billion Catholics. His death was quickly marked worldwide.
His was a papacy of firsts, the first pope to hail from the Americas, the first Jesuit pope, and the first to take the name of that great champion of the poor, St. Francis of Assisi. Pope Francis' compassion embraced all humanity, and today he will be mourned by Catholics and non-Catholics alike.
At France's recently reconstructed Notre Dame Cathedral, the bells rung for his passing as people gathered to pay their respects.
Throughout his pontificate, he's been at the side of the most vulnerable and fragile, with a great deal of humility and a very special sense of humanity in these times of war and brutality. And in this, he was faithful to a tradition that was dear to him.
While Sir Keir Starmer said Pope Francis was a pope for the poor, the downtrodden and the forgotten, he was close to the realities of human fragility, meeting Christians around the world facing war, famine, persecution and poverty. Yet he never lost hope of a better world. One of the last global leaders to see the Pope in person was King Charles, who said that he was deeply saddened by his death, adding that throughout his work and care for both people and planet, he profoundly touched the lives of so many. And at cathedrals all around the UK, people began to gather. In Westminster, preparations are underway for a special mass.
Why will he be remembered for you?
As a strong man with determined to change the world.
Shocked really, because when we saw him yesterday I thought he was getting a bit better. So it was really sad this morning when you heard that he's actually died.
Yeah, I think the whole Catholic community is going to be devastated, first of all, even though that we knew it, that his health has been quite in a balance for some time. But as a leader of the Catholic Church, it is a devastating news for all of us, definitely.
Cardinal Vincent Nichols said a voice for proclaiming the innate dignity of every human being, especially those who are poor or marginalised, is now silent. The legacy he leaves is one we must seek to carry forward and strengthen. Easter Monday Mass is always significant for Catholics, today more so than ever. Special services are being planned across the UK to mark the life and death of Pope Francis. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Indeed, Joe Inwood there, just reminding everybody that it is, of course, Easter time, Easter Monday today, just yesterday, Easter Sunday, a really critical time for the Christian community, the time where Christians mark and celebrate the resurrection of Christ at the heart of the religion. So particularly poignant. Just a few details to bring you up to date with. A public prayer has been announced from 5:30 GMT in St. Peter's Square. That's an announcement made by the Vatican, and we know that so many people are there now, just paying their tributes, just wanting to mingle in front of the the place where St. Peter's Basilica, where the pontiff's coffin will be held. And we understand that his coffin will be moved there as early as Wednesday morning. So we'll just keep an eye on any further announcements from the Vatican. But of course, we've had so many tributes from around the world, and my colleagues have been monitoring that. We are joined by Rich Preston, who continues to be with us, and Lebu Diseko also joining us, our World Global Religion correspondent, who is monitoring all of this for us. Rich, when it comes to the tributes, anyone and everyone has been passing on their condolences and just talking about the man whose papacy was renowned for being so humble.
Absolutely. And actually, let's start in the Pope's home country, Argentina, with President Javier Milei earlier saying, "It's with profound sorrow I learned this morning of the death of Pope Francis. Now he is resting in peace, and despite differences that seem minor today, having been able to know him in his goodness and wisdom was a true honour for me." And as we've been discussing on the programme, the Pope didn't shy away from controversies. He saw the Vatican's role in global diplomacy as a key one. Another reaction we've had recently from Iran's president, saying he offers his condolences on the passing of Pope Francis, the leader and spiritual guide of the world's Catholics. We also heard earlier from the Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian leader, who said that Pope Francis was the Pope who supported the cause of Palestinians. He credited him for being an advocate for the rights of the Palestinian people and thanked him for being the Pope who allowed the Palestinian flag to be flown in the Vatican. We also did hear from Israel's President Isaac Herzog, who described Pope Francis as a man of deep faith and boundless compassion, who, he said, rightly saw great importance in fostering strong ties with the Jewish world. So Pope Francis's legacy here, as you say, spreads far beyond the Catholic community.
Indeed, and a complete global reach, of course. And Lebu, just on the point when it comes to Gaza, just yesterday he was calling for peace to be adhered there. He just never stopped.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, Kasia, that both the Israeli president and the leader of the Palestinians as well saw Pope Francis as somebody who was speaking for their causes. In his Easter address, he spoke about the scourge of anti-Semitism, and he also talked about the toll of a war that he said disproportionately had a disproportionate effect on Palestinians. He spoke about the need for peace in Ukraine, and we all remember those really striking scenes where he kissed the feet of the two leaders in South Sudan, calling on them to stop the civil war that was happening there. That was quite a few years ago, but it was quite a striking image, and I think it really speaks to the role that he took on as a peacemaker. Even when he was sick, he was in hospital for around a month, he was calling the church in Gaza. The church in Gaza is actually made up of not just Catholics, there are other Christians as well. He called them every night to touch base with them and let them know that he was praying for them. So, as I said, I think this really speaks to the role that he took on as promoting peace and seeing himself as a peacemaker in the world.
He called them every night?
Yeah.
Wow. And this is throughout an illness that was a very long illness, and we know that he was very, very gravely ill. There were points when he was, especially in the Gemelli Hospital in Rome, where he was at death's door, Rich. We were covering that, obviously, but yet we saw him yesterday, and I think that's where it is a bit of a sense of shock that we have, and that's why so many world leaders are speaking out.
Absolutely, right up to the wire. He was working, doing the job that he loved. He wrote the homily for yesterday's Easter service. He didn't deliver it, but he did write it. And then afterwards, many of us saw the pictures, he got in the Pope-mobile and travelled around St. Peter's Square, being past babies to bless. This was a job that he loved doing, and that's the message that's coming through loud and clear from those who are paying tribute to him. Now, as you mentioned earlier, J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, was the last world leader, if you like, who had a formal meeting with the Pope. He paid tribute earlier on, saying his heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. We then heard from President Trump saying, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis, may God bless him and all who loved him." And we've heard from President Biden and President Obama as well, so they reach far and wide.
Yeah, and he was quite forthright in his thoughts about the first Trump administration, and he did clash with them, especially when it came to things like globalization, climate change, but just looking after the poor. There's a lot to navigate, isn't there? Thinking forward, I guess, when we're talking about his legacy, but obviously the Catholic Church continues, and they'll be thinking about the next pontiff. The conclave, I haven't seen the film, but we know that there's a lot of political machinations behind the scenes of how you then bring about and choose a next pope.
Look, I think the church at the moment is in mourning. Catholics all over the world are in a period of mourning. Several countries have actually declared, from Brazil to Spain, national mourning in memory of the Pope. So I think that is first and foremost. But obviously, within, the cardinals within the church, people will have started thinking about this. I think in terms of the Pope's legacy, he was very keen to make a church that reflected its people. So where the Catholic Church was growing, whether it was Africa or Asia, uplifting Latin America as well, and you saw that in his choice of cardinals, choosing people from the Asian continent, from the Central African Republic, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think that there will be some in the church that will want the next choice to reflect that, but there'll also be those who want to return it to its traditional centre of Europe. So that might be one thing that people are considering. The other thing that people may be considering is, Pope Francis was a Catholic pope, so he was never going to be, take the kind of positions I think a lot of very progressive people wanted him to take. But certainly within the Catholic Church, he was seen as a reformer. And there are those that will want it to return to its more traditional roots. Pope Francis's focus on things like migrants, on poverty, on the environment as well. You spoke about his clashes with the Trump administration just the other day. He essentially rebuked J.D. Vance for his interpretation of what it means to, who you should look after first and looking after immigrants, essentially, that come to your country. So I think that's those are the kind of struggles that we might see in terms of who they might be looking at next in the direction of the church.
Well, that absolutely leads us on to the next subject area. Lebu Deseko, our World Service religion correspondent, thank you very much. And Rich Preston, thank you. I know we'll be coming back to you throughout the day just to get more of that reaction as it comes in. But to the point that Lebu was making there, of course, what happens next? How will the conclave, how will they be fashioning themselves? Who are they going to be looking at? Because the following days will see a formal process for Catholics around the world to say farewell to Pope Francis before those cardinals then arrive in the Vatican to decide on his successor. Crucial because it will decide the direction of the Catholic Church. The pontiff, Pope Francis, had already decided to change some of the many, many years-old traditions of the Catholic Church. Mark Easton explains.
The Pope's office and apartments have been sealed. The papal fisherman's ring has been removed from Pope Francis's finger and smashed with a hammer. His body, dressed in red robes, will lie in state for 3 days at St. Peter's Basilica. Ritual dictates almost every detail of a pope's death. But Pope Francis was a man with his own ideas. He is elected not to be buried in the Vatican like most of his predecessors, but in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where he often chose to pray. It's in one of Rome's less glamorous neighbourhoods, Esquilino, home to budget hotels and modest B&Bs, close to the main bus and railway stations, the district where many immigrants have put down roots. Unlike the grand and traditional papal funeral afforded to Pope Benedict in 2023, Francis has designed a much humbler service. Rather than the grand 3-layered papal coffin, his will be a simple wooden casket. The funeral will take place within a week, amid 9 days of official mourning. The conclave to elect his successor won't begin for at least 15 days. 138 cardinals under 80 are eligible to vote. Pope Francis's appointments have ensured it's a much less European constituency than before, with 18 South American and 18 African cardinals among those who must decide upon the direction of the Catholic Church.
Mark Easton there, and you hear there in Mark's report.
There you have it, the passing of Pope Francis and the arrangements now for his funeral, his final resting place, not among the predecessors.
In St. Peter's Basilica. He has chosen another basilica outside the walls of the Vatican, as you heard there from the BBC.
Man committed, to the poor and the marginalized in life and in death, and of course his final resting place.
Yeah. Of course, we'll have more for you tomorrow during Nationwide this morning. International news will continue to watch this, and then of course the papal conclave, ancient process, ancient ritual, will begin. Of course, the Pope's funeral. We'll have it all here for you on Nationwide 90 FM.
All right, that's how we're going to leave it. Thanks to our producers, Kimon Thompson, Fabian Brown, our technical operator, who we pulled out of his bed, Mr. Damon Cunningham. Thank you so much.
You don't tell the people you pulled me out of my bed as well. You don't tell the people that.
Yes, we pulled you out as well. Yeah.
I'm on leave, you know.
You're on leave?
I am still on leave.
Until?
Until Thursday.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. Lucky you. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for today. It's 12 minutes going up to 9 o'clock. You'll hear from me tomorrow afternoon. Yes?
Morning and afternoon.
No, tomorrow afternoon. George will be doing Cliff Hughes Online from Trelawney tomorrow morning.
I see.
And I'll be doing Nationwide at 5. Okay? So, see you then. Have a good one.
Whether you buy it, build it, or improve